If you were given the opportunity to rate a country like Bangladesh, from all that you know about the country, what rating would you give Bangladesh? Well, Bangladesh was rated twice this year, once by Moody's and another by Standard & Poor's. And to the surprise of everybody, it has a rating today that is above some of its South Asian neighbors. And here we have, speaking to us is Mr. Mahmood Sattar, the CEO of Citibank in Bangladesh and the chairman of the Association of Banks in Bangladesh. Tell us what you felt when you heard about the new ratings that have been put in place.
Thank you, Daniel. This has been a very exciting news for the financial sector or the economy as a whole in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has never been rated before, so the world kept on guessing as to where we should put the rating onto Bangladesh. The rating of BB minus and by Moody's and investment grade was actually a matter of joy for all of us in Bangladesh and in the financial sector especially. The question as to if I was to rate Bangladesh, where would I have rated it? Let's go back to the arena of the world which Bangladesh is surrounded with. I personally feel that we do a bad job in our PR. I personally feel that all our lives, all we told was the sad stories of Bangladesh. Never highlighted our potential or what we could do.
Why was that? Do you think that it's a Bengali thing that to weave a story around your bad side of the story rather than to project a positive image?
Actually, I think it was a very political decision that the politicians had taken at the level, because we felt that if we continue to be a least developed country, we'll be looked around by the world and helped in support of aid and others. That's fully a dependency theory that we worked on. As government moved in, there's been a lot of transformational reforms, which governments used to always resist to do so. So we continued to be the little boy in the family who would be supported and helped by others. You're absolutely right, Daniel, when you say that there's a mindset change. There's a huge mindset change. It has changed for two reasons. The world has stopped giving aid. They now want you to be self-sufficient. The governments now realize that there's no point going on this strategy. I mean, I've worked overseas, and everywhere I have seen of Bangladesh in the television or somewhere on documentaries would talk about that we are a delta, we are a flood. It keeps on flooding all the time. We are a delta where the cyclone and the typhoon hits. It never talked about the potential. If we talk about the potential, in a very short, small example I'll give. The 2008 meltdown, the global financial crisis. We went into seminars and we talked about it, and there was a lot of skepticism that the Bangladesh economy is going to go down. Why? Because our internal demand is low and we cater to the outside world, the export market. And the export market we cater to is Europe and America, the developed market. If those developed markets do not have a demand, then our demand will automatically go down and the economies go down. And we are surprised that we actually handled that financial year very, very well. In the sense that globally, when the world was bailing out banks in our country was bailing out business. Business which got affected because of direct linkage with the Western world. One reason, of course, we still have a conservative financial economy for which we are not allowed to go and invest overseas into these derivatives and these products like that without the clearance of the central bank, which helped us in not rushing into where everybody rushed into and lost money. But I would like to impress upon and say that the financial system, the regulatory system, showed its robustness this year.
Well, it's not robust. Robustness is a new phenomenon for the financial system. It was also extremely conservative, extremely clubbish for many years. In fact, it was even undemocratic in the sense that banking was not available to a whole segment of the economy. In fact, you would even argue that banking did not facilitate a lot of the economy except the parts which they understood, which was the textile industry, the export-oriented industry, essentially. And suddenly, banking has woken up. What happened? What created that?
Two things. One, I must also admit that last year we had a new governor for Bangladesh Bank, Dr. Atiur Rahman. He has come in and he's really pushing the boundaries, the limits where we could go. And now banks are moving into areas which they did not work on. Banks continue to remain at the top of echelon and have the comfort zone of doing so because they were, that would give them enough business to do. And you're absolutely right, Daniel, when you say that we did not push our boundaries. We continue to do what we did best, which was industry, which was services, and which was others. If you have noticed, there's a noticeable shift that is happening in our banking scenario, in the sense banks are now going rural. Rural economy was something banks did not want to go and touch. Micro economy was something banks did not want to touch because they did not want to understand that part of the business. The competition has now encouraged them to find out newer markets, and newer markets are these areas.
The competition meaning the microfinance?
The internal competition. The internal competition of banks trying to dominate and stay in one market, which is industry, which is trade, and which is services.
Okay.
Which is basically a very urban-based financial center. That has actually encouraged banks to now look at newer markets. And newer markets, they're finding out that the microfinance institutes have done a wonderful job, makes a huge lot of money, and there's a huge opportunity for banks to actually go in there. The reason that they did not go in is probably they're more difficult markets to understand. It needs more manpower. It's a more cost-driven business model. Banks should be in a position today to reduce the cost from microfinances and compete with them on a neck-to-neck basis at the micro level, at the microfinancing level. Yes, you can call it undemocratic, but then again, there was enough demand and supply situation at the top end, so people did not go at the bottom end. But what I want to say is the economy handled the global shock well. If you have seen, the global shock started in North America, but it went through all over Europe. It went to Japan and other parts of the world.
But you weren't connected with the global economy.
Okay. We were not connected with the direct derivatives in investment. But look at our economy. Our economy does not have so much of an internal demand. What we are now trying to create is internal demand.
Previously, the whole sentiment was very conservative, very clubbish, as I said. And then comes leaders like yourself, and I'm sure there are 3 to 4 people like yourself, and as you mentioned, the governor himself. What is your background that causes you to look at your own banking system differently, you think?
The banking scenario mindset has changed. And I put full credit to the new governor, Dr. Atiur Rahman, because he came and pushed the barriers. He wanted the mindset to change. Leaders in our industry are now looking at this, looking at it as an opportunity. Previously, when we got pushed into, say, SME, agricultural financing, we thought we had to do it as a part of doing business.
Exactly.
But that mindset has now changed in Bangladesh. Banks, I'll give you an example. Every year we apply to the central bank for new, fresh branch licenses. And the central bank had a rule that for every 4 branches in the city, you had to ask for a rural branch. This year, surprisingly, it has reversed. People are asking for more rural branches than city branches.
But this is because of the best practices evolved and stabilized by the microfinance companies, right? And in fact, the world's most famous microfinance company is from Bangladesh. Today, there's a whole shift, and all that has been learned in the microfinance industry is now being applied by the banks, and therefore the expansion potential has become larger, just infinitely larger as a result. How sustainable is that? Are there going to be winners and losers as the banks become more democratic in Bangladesh?
You're absolutely right when you said that we thought we don't have anything to learn from the microfinance agents. We thought we don't need to go there. As the market expanded, as the business expanded, and the business at the top end, which is again industry, service, and trade, started getting very competitive for more and more banks coming in, people had to look at alternatives. The first alternative came in was the SME. Banks started moving into the small and medium enterprise, which was a big gap. There was a bankable gap between the micro and the larger corporates. There was nothing in between. A few banks came in and started looking at that. Those were the revolutionary that happened in the mindset change in the bankers to sort of get in there. What is now